Hello, I'm attorney Francesco Ficci Martinez. Welcome to this YouTube video and to my YouTube channel. If you're viewing this video on my website, I'm happy that you found my website, that you're looking at my blog and seeing hopefully other relevant topics to your questions, to your immigration questions. I have this YouTube video, this YouTube channel that I update regularly on. Additionally, I have a website. My information will be linked below. That is it. Here is the video. Thank you for your time. Hello, I'm attorney Francesco Ficci Martinez with Ficci Martinez Law Firm P.L.L.C. I am an immigration attorney with offices in Jacksonville, North Carolina and Fayetteville, North Carolina. Today I am going to talk about the Fiance Visa process, but specifically for Manila, Philippines, for Filipino fiancés. I'm focusing on just this one country because every single fiance visa process is different, slightly different, depending on what country you come from. Why? Because the Department of State Consular Division, the US Consulate in each country, has different policies. They require slightly different supporting documents, usually different police certificates, or sort of something similar to a FBI federal background check, something along those lines. Additionally, medical requirements might be slightly different because of the region of the world. And additionally, fees, numbers to call, every single country is different. So this video is going to focus on the Philippines. Manila is where the US Consulate that handles the K-1 fiance visa interview is at the Manila US Consulate in their immigrant division. Okay, so I'm going to step back just a second. The fiance visa process. I like to describe things broadly, giving all the process, because it isn't as simple. It isn't one thing, one form, boom, you're done. Completely different. In fact, the fiance visa process is a three-step process, if you want to look at it from start to finish. The fiance visa first has to become available. The eligibility requirement for the fiance visa process is to have a petition, an I-129F petition approved. That is step one, the petition. What is a petition? A petition is a request. The U.S. citizen fiance is requesting that the U.S. government make this fiance visa available to the fiance that is in the Philippines. The petition, that's step one, is not just one form, it's a few. One of them is the actual petition where the fiance is stating, hey, I am a U.S. citizen, here's my supporting documents, I can prove my citizenship. Hey, this is my fiance, we have a real relationship, I'm going to prove this with X, Y, and Z evidence, photos, communication logs, Skype records, Viber, WhatsApp, Facebook, social media, other items like that. Anything that you can show, hey, we've been dating for 1 month, 2 months, a year, 2 years, this is how long. And also, hey, we've met each other. I have been there to the Philippines. I was at the Philippines on vacation. I met the love of my life, fell in love, and now I want to get married. Please, U.S. government, in this petition, allow this to happen. Okay, that's the main one. There's other forms in there, but that isn't what I want to focus on for this video. If you have questions about that, if you want assistance with that, if the U.S. Citizen petitioner needs assistance with that, or the fiance in the Philippines wants the U.S. petitioner to have assistance with that, I highly recommend that you contact an immigration attorney. Even though I'm in North Carolina, if they're in Texas, New York, California, it can still assist them. Immigration will allow me to, since immigration is federal, it will allow me to assist clients outside of my state. And I have plenty of clients in New York, in California, and handling everything remotely is not that difficult. Why? Because the fiance visa process, I'm in North Carolina. I'm a North Carolina immigration attorney, and a lot of my clients would be there in the Philippines. We would have to do everything remotely anyway. Video calls, mostly not phone calls because that's expensive, but Skype call, Google Hangout call, emails, back and forth to get everything set up. So handling everything remotely in step 1 is possible and quite common. Okay, so that petition happens with USCIS. The petitioner, probably if you're watching this video, you may already know about the I-129F petition form, the process, the G-325As that have to be attached to that. That happens in step 1. Once that is approved, USCIS sends that to the NVC, National Visa Center. The name throws up a few ideas. Hey, National Visa Center, that's the center that sort of arranges all the visas that happen. And that's mostly true. They are the middleman, the go-between for USCIS and the Department of State Consular Division, the US Consulate. The NVC will review the petition, the approval, will review the documents, and they'll send all of that. They'll package it up really nice and send that to the consulate in Manila, Philippines. Okay, so the NVC is sort of the start of this, the Fiance Visa itself. This is the start of step 2 of the 3-step Fiance Visa process. Overarching, stepping back, step 1, the petition. Hey, U.S. government, make the Fiance Visa available for my fiance in the Philippines. Step 1, okay, it's approved. Step 2, this is the actual applying for the Fiance Visa. After a I-129F petition is approved, there is a time window that the Fiance Visa process, the Fiance Visa must be performed. You must go before an immigration officer and have your interview before that petition expires. Usually the petition grants a window of 4 months. I have seen it as little as 2 months. It could be 5 months, but generally the 4 months is where the availability window is given. It might be 4 months from the approval, but the availability window to go to the interview is 2 months out of that. That's not uncommon. Really, it's that 4 month, just stated slightly different. Not much would happen in the first 2 months anyway, scheduling-wise. Okay, at least for Manila, Philippines. Okay, so step 2, NVC creates a case number. NNL, a lot of numbers. Manila, and a lot of numbers. Okay, you have this case number. This case, all of these documents that happen in step 1 are going to be transferring over to the consulate in Manila, Philippines. However, there's a lot of work to get done in this step 2. From my perspective, I'm going to explain it how I understand it, how I explain it to my clients, especially the ones in the Philippines. I explain it like this. This second step in the Fiance Visa process has 3 phases. There's 3 periods of time that we have to look at. The first phase is getting everything prepared. There's a lot of work that has to happen right after that approval and before the interview. This first phase is collecting the documents that are needed, getting the documents filled out that need to get filled out. The first one is the actual application for the Fiance Visa, the DS-160. That application has to be completed. It has to have everything completed and a confirmation page produced. After that, it has to be paid for. That has to be done first in order to schedule the interview. Okay, so that's the main one, the application. You have to do that. After that, there's an affidavit support. For this process, for Manila, you have to do the affidavit support, the I-134. Now, that is based, a lot of the work is going to be on the U.S. citizen petitioner. It is their financial stability. If they are confused with this process at this point, it would save you a lot of stress and possibly money and time if you speak with an immigration attorney. The affidavit support, even though that form is very small, the supporting documents that go behind it to support it, there should be a lot. If not, tax returns, pay stubs, anything to prove, hey, I can support my soon-to-be wife when she's here in the U.S. I make this amount of money. I overcome the poverty level as, stated in I usually go off of the I-864P, USCIS Federal Poverty Level Guidelines. For the I-134, you have to meet the 100% mark. So if you look at the active duty side on the I-864P, you have to make that amount. However, I usually tell my clients, you have to make the actual I-864P 125%, which is the civilian side column. If you're active duty military, and this is for your fiance, your soon-to-be spouse, you can have that 100%. You will need that again in step 3 of the fiance visa process. We're still in step 2. Okay, now the affidavit support, if they have trouble, speak with an attorney, but if they feel comfortable with it, okay, they need to be able to fill that out. They need to be able to have supporting documents to show they make enough money for both the fiance, and if kids are coming on K2 visas, then they would have to also be in that equation as well. Okay, so application, affidavit support, 2 major players in phase 1. But I'm not done. This is the preparation phase. You're collecting all the things that you need for the next 2 phases. Okay, after that, what I generally advise all of my clients to do is usually you have to update your G-325A. There might be errors from months ago, from before the step 1 even started. Make sure that is correct. Why? Because when it comes to the interview, the immigration officer is going to usually want the fiance to sign it. The fiance will look at it and say, oh, there's an error here, error here, error here. Okay, that'll make the immigration officer a little bit mad because it's supposed to be correct. In step 1, it was included, it was required. Usually the fiance doesn't need to sign it, but if they signed it, well, guess what? The immigration officer is going to assume 100% correct. So the 3rd document I usually like to have updated, if not reviewed for 100% accuracy, G-325A biographical form. It has your past 5 years of residence, past 5 years of employment, and other information about the applicant, the fiance visa applicant, the person in the Philippines. So, yes, 3rd form, gotta have that. Even though that's not in the instructions, that probably should be touched. Now, speaking of instructions, the fiance visa process has instructions. It has guidelines. It has a checklist of all these documents you need to have prepared for the fiance visa interview. If you haven't found that instruction packet in either English or Filipino, then you definitely should find it now. Based on the instructions, the DS-160 is first on that list. It always is. It's the most important thing. You need that for the interview. However, there's other documents that you need. Your birth certificate. Make sure it's the PSA, Filipino Statistics Office, PSA. Your birth certificate has to be from there. It cannot be from the older agencies. If you have an older one, make sure you update it. The instructions say you have to update your birth certificate. It has to be PSA. Now, next after that, PSA also provides the Cinemar, the certificate to show that you're eligible to marry, you're single. You have to have that certificate ready. Those 2 documents are requirements. You have to have that ready for your interview. After that, the NBI Police Clearance. I am going to have to give my personal opinion. I love the NBI system, how quickly you can get a police clearance. The NBI, to my understanding, is very similar to the FBI background check, which for our system in the US, that takes weeks. Yet the NBI police clearance can come back within 1 day. A lot of my clients have gotten it within 1 day, maybe 2 days, or maybe the day of. It is amazingly quick, and that is essentially a background check to make sure that there are no crimes that have to be provided to the U.S. Immigration officer, the consulate officer. So that's my comment on that. An amazing system. Now, after that, there's other things in the checklist that you would want to see. Documents from the petitioner about that filing and other things. I'm not going to give a complete checklist in this video. Why? because policies always change, requirements always change. Look for the instructions, the most up-to-date instructions, because that is the safest thing to do right now as you're watching this video. Okay, so there's usually one other thing, one final thing I like to have in my phase 1, as I tell to my clients. Medical. You're going to have to start preparing for it. You're going to have it before the interview. This is the time to look for your vaccination record. If you don't have it on hand, go get it. You're going to need it for the interview. You're going to need to make sure you're up to date on vaccinations. That's a document usually most people have on hand. If you don't, now's the time to get it. Phase 1. Okay. That's sort of the homework phase, the supporting document phase, getting everything ready phase. Okay. Now, phase 2. It is connecting the dots between phase 1 and phase 3. It is, hello, I have completed the DS-160 application. I want the interview. How do I do that? In the instructions, there is a phone number. Call that phone number in order to schedule the actual interview. They're going to look for the DS-160 completion confirmation number. They're also going to look for payment. Hasn't been paid. The Philippines, Manila, has very specific payment requirements. The instructions stated very clearly the very few options that you have, the amount that must be paid, where it must be paid, what bank it must be paid to. Payment is something that changes. It differs from every single country. Every fiancé visa process for every country is different on this payment issue, and that's why it's very important to look for the instructions for your specific country. And also, this video is tailored just for Manila, Philippines, the Philippines in general, just because it's very unique. The instructions are very unique for this country. Okay, they're going to look for the payment. Make sure you're scheduled. Okay, you're going to schedule you within the 4 months that they give to you, 5 months that they give to you, the authorized period that they give to you. Try your best to get it scheduled. Also, make sure your fingerprint is good to go, and do the election for the carrier service to return your passport to you. That is essentially, you give your passport at the interview. If you don't know this already, you give your passport at the interview, and they have to put a visa in there, the K1 visa, the fiancé visa in the passport. After that, they return it to you. They're not going to do it there at the interview. It usually takes 1 to 2 weeks for that visa to get put in the passport and then returned to the applicant. Okay, so you're doing that for the interview. Make sure your fingerprint is good to go. Make sure your medical is scheduled. Just a special note, for the Philippines, you have to go to the St. Luke's Extension Clinic. You have to go there for your medical interview. You can't go anywhere else. The instructions tell you, and the Department of State website tells you, you have to go to this clinic to get your vaccinations and other medical tests, TB test, gonorrhea test, and anything else. I'm not going to give an extensive list because that always changes. The gonorrhea test just came about in 2016, I believe. Okay, so you have to have your medical. Timing-wise, it would take a few days for the medical to get back. If you're traveling to Manila, you live in another part of the Philippines, it's probably best to give yourself 3-4 days in advance to your interview to go to the medical, have all the tests done, get all the results. Okay, you have that medical evaluation. It's ready to go for your interview. If you're in Manila, there is no reason why you can't go right now, weeks in advance, a week in advance. You're there in Manila. Whenever is most convenient for you, go there before the interview, and then do not lose that medical evaluation. It's expensive, and you 100% need it for your interview. Okay, so that's the only note I have on that. Whenever there's traveling involved to Manila, you always have to consider that. Now, for the passport, you're going to want the passport to go back to your home region because that's where you're probably going to be afterwards, a week, 2 weeks later. But enough on that point. Okay, phase 2, setting everything up. There isn't a lot of paperwork involved. There's just a phone calls, setting everything up, making sure you know when and where you have to be. Phase 3, the interview. This is where you are going to have to show your relationship is real. The fiancé visa has a lot of fraud involved in it. People believe that if you meet somebody in the U.S. or you lie about your relationship or you pay for your relationship or you just do some strange scenario, that'll get you through everything. However, this is only step 2. So here's a step 3, and there's many other immigration steps afterwards. This interview is going to screen you for 2 things. Mainly, it's going to be fraud. Is there relationship fraud? Is there going to be marriage fraud? Is it a fake relationship? Is it going to be a fake marriage? They're going to look at your answers to questions about your fiance. They're going to want to make sure you even know your fiance's name, possibly date of birth, possibly middle name, possibly where has he lived in the U.S. You might think, oh, New York. No, it's California, completely different state, different sides of a continent. Make sure you know your fiance well. If you're real, if you're fake, please don't do this process. But if you're a real relationship, which most people are, most fiancés are, ask your fiance all sorts of questions. Ask them what are their likes and dislikes. Where do you live? Where did your parents live? Where were you born? How did you get to where you are now? Your job. How did you get your job? Education. Make sure you know all of that because those are nice things to talk about at the interview. And really, real relationships know that. And if you haven't been dating long, in all honesty, you may not know all these things. You love the person that you're with, even though it's long distance possibly. You really care about that person. You see yourself spending your life with them. That is a marriage, soon to be marriage, that is a relationship. But you need to know a few facts as well. In all honesty, that G-325A, that biographical form that happened in step 1, the fiance has to fill it out, has to complete it. That's what you sort of update in phase 1 of this second step. But also in step 1, the fiance, U.S. citizen fiance, filled that out as well. The immigration officer is going to have both of those. The consular officer is going to have both of those G-325As before him. And he could easily find questions, easy questions to go for. What's your fiance's middle name? He'll see it on the form. Maybe looking over that information would help. You are going to be nervous as the fiance from the Philippines. You are going to be nervous about the interview. That's natural for everybody. No matter if you have an attorney or not, that's natural for everybody. Even if you are an attorney, it's natural to be nervous about this interview. That officer, that consulate officer that you're going towards, has complete say on whether you go live your life with your fiance or if you're going to stay there in the Philippines. So yes, that's the first fraud they're going to look towards. They're going to really scrutinize, look into your relationship, the soon-to-be marriage. The other kind of fraud that they're going to look into is the person, the applicant themselves. Are they who they say they are? Are they a part of any organizations that are dangerous to come to the U.S.? Are they a terrorist? Are they in the Philippines with fake documents? Again, are they who they say they are? It is very possible to have a fake passport, fake IDs, fake everything. And that's what they're going to be confirming. Those are the 2 main things. And then after you go through the interview, you give your passport, you leave the interviewing room, you leave the US Consulate, hopefully you're approved. And your passport will be coming in the mail. Once you have your passport, you have to come to the US before it expires. Visas expire. That's common knowledge. So definitely come before that. And then also, time-wise, you have to marry within 90 days. And that gets you into step 3 of the Fiance Visa process, stepping back, looking at everything from afar. 3 steps, very stressful process. Step 3, you're in the U.S. now, you've married the love of your life, you are together at last. Nothing can keep you apart, you hope. This final step in this filing is the adjustment of status process. You're adjusting from Fiance Visa, the K1, possibly K2 if you have kids, process, the Fiance Visa, to a lawful permanent resident, to a green card holder. You are adjusting that status. And in that process, It can take as little as 2-3 months, as long as 2-3 years. It really depends on where you are filing. Now, if you've gone through this entire process, you've been stressed out, if you did it without an attorney, I'm happy it went well. But this third step, you're coming back to USCIS, the agency that started step 1. They're going to look at everything that's happened in step 2 and step 1 in step 3. And they're also going to look into your relationship again, all the way back to the first day you met, to make sure everything is correct, in order. There is no fraud. That's sort of what an interview in that step is for. Step 3, adjusting status. That process is not just one form. There's many forms that go with it. There's also supplemental forms that go with it, such as employment authorization, such as travel permit, travel document, such as affidavit of support. Remember, step 2 had its own affidavit of support, the I-134. Step 3 has a much larger affidavit of support, the I-864. That also goes off of the I-864P Federal Poverty Level Guidelines. And if your fiance, now husband at that point, has issues financially, or is not able to provide certain documents, or has concerns about it, they should speak with an immigration attorney to make sure this does not hurt your filing, because you've already done step 2, you've already done step 1, step 3. You don't want it to get canceled. You don't want it to be denied because you're missing certain documents, you moved, complications, you're not eligible because there isn't enough financial support. Maybe during this entire process between step 2 and step 3, someone has lost a job, or they're moving to a different job, they don't have pay stubs, they don't have all sorts of documents, all sorts of evidence that are needed in step 3. You're almost done with the fiance visa process. You are so close. Okay. There's a lot of documents there. The adjustment of status, I can go on for a very long time. But I'm not going to. Before I let you go, just broad picture again. Step 1, petition. Step 2, fiance visa application approval. Step 3, you're in the United States after marriage, and the adjustment of status to a lawful permanent resident to a green card holder. This, stepping back, is your first filing. Your first filing of 3. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact my office. I wish everyone the best of luck, and thank you so much for your time. I hope this video has been helpful. Take care.